What is going on? Welcome to Ruu S Room, where we get into the nitty-gritty of the artists and creatives in the Australian scene. I am Ruu, aka the Culture Black Kid, and today we have Ben Madden. He is a journalist, writer, and Converse All-Star from Victoria. He is currently the music editorial specialist from Junkie, and has also previously written for publications such as Vice, NME, Acclaim, and many more. Ben, how are you doing? Like for real, for real. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Roo. Thanks so much for having me on. The
That's
weather
good.
outside's
That's
pretty
good.
shocking, but I'm sure things will be much better here.
No, for sure, for sure. Um, the day we are recording this is not too long after New Year's, not to date myself, but yeah, how was your 2023? I guess firstly, and what are you looking forward to? Is there anything you're personally looking forward to um within your journalistic ventures going into this year?
My 2023 was eventful. I started off the year really planning to have a big year interview-wise.
Hmm.
Started out the year with a few bylines I was really happy to get under my belt.
Hmm.
The Vice one you mentioned, wrote a couple of pieces for them, which I really enjoyed. Wrote a couple of pieces for Junkie, and in about April 2023, I went from writing a lot as a freelancer to actually coming on board with Junkie as their music editorial specialist, kind of reshaping their music coverage with an eye on Australian music. So
Nice.
it was not the way I'd planned the year. I really thought it
Hmm.
was going to be a year of a lot of freelancing, a lot of pitching, a lot of writing for different places. But I think it
Hmm.
all worked out because I've found that I really enjoyed the editing side of things, worked with a lot of great Australian writers.
Hmm.
I think 2024 will probably be more predictable, but I feel like
Right.
I'm jinxing myself by saying that. But I think it'll be a lot more of doing the junky stuff, kind of editing with an eye on writing a little bit more. I think really dove into the editing, tried to teach myself as much as I could about editing, like
Hmm.
working with different people, kind of spreading, looking for as many contributors as possible.
Hmm.
Think in 2024, I want to get back to writing a little bit more while balancing the editing on the side of that. I think trying to find the harmony between the two because I do love writing. I think as a writer, you always like having your name on the
Of
byline.
course.
So I think balancing the two, that's what I'm looking forward to. I think if I can get that balance right, which I believe I can,
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to what the year holds.
For sure. For sure. And I kind of have was in a similar boat with not with writing, but in regards to focusing on something so heavily in 2023, which is building my Culture Black Kid brand and my quote unquote journalistic name. But because of that, my music kind of suffered a little bit, or I didn't really focus on that as much. So for me, it's more so in the vein of really balancing my music and my journalism, or my brand and content and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that. And it, I also mentioned Converse All-Star. How has your, I guess it's almost coming up on a year of just being a part of that select few been.
I still don't quite believe it. I think it's one of those things where music journalism for me, it's something you start out doing because in my case, I was 14, 15, and I really wanted to get into under 18 gigs for free.
Hmm.
And then you look at how everything's gone since then. And then, yeah, I put in an application for the Converse All-Stars. And for people that are watching this and might not know what that is, it's a community of a lot of different creators from all over the world. But one thing that I noticed when I applied was there wasn't really any written music journalists in the
Mm.
mix. So I put in an application thinking, well, I want to get involved. I
Yeah.
think this would be really cool. I wear Converse anyway, not thinking much of it. And yeah, it felt very validating. It was a really cool thing to see for myself, but also because when I spoke to people about it, they were like, oh, okay, I want to get involved now. So I'm
For
hoping when
sure.
the applications come around next time, can
Hmm.
bring some of my community in alongside with me because
Definitely.
I really like seeing other music journalists win, and I think it's an exciting thing. Like I got in there on the. I'm not an artist. I cannot sing. I cannot play an instrument beyond a few chords on a guitar. Took a few bass guitar lessons, but yeah, I just thought it was a really cool experience. It is a cool experience to be involved,
Hmm.
and I'd love to see more music journalists get involved as well.
For sure. For sure. It isn't something that, people typically think of when they They think the All-Star, and that, they see, maybe some of the interviews, Tyler when he came to Sydney, and when he was having that Q&A with all the people, they think, oh yeah, it's artists, it's producers, but journalists isn't usually typically the first person you think of. So it's super cool that, you're now part of that community and be like, yo, let me champion for the rest of the community to be like, yo, this is something you should also be a part of. So yeah.
And I think the thing is for me, like there are some hugely talented journalists involved, like Noah DaCosta's involved, who's one of my favorite
Fire.
Australian music journalists, period. But I'm very much a written, like a writer first as a music journalist rather than a broadcaster or a video journalist. So
Hmm.
I thought that was cool because I'm like, well, I do most of this from my house. I'm very much used to the written word, to seeing that translate into a real life environment, going along to a Converse All-Star event and being like, oh wow, okay, this is real life recognition. Yeah, I don't know. I would love to sit here and say that like external validation doesn't mean anything to me, but I think it does to everyone, like at least a little bit, right?
No, for sure, for sure. Someone saying you're doing a great job in some way is like, yeah, I just want to feel it, just in
Let me
some
have this
little way.
one.
Yeah, I
And
might act like it's whatever, but deep down, I'm like, okay, that was nice.
and the free shoes help. I will say
Oh,
that.
I don't doubt. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
doubt it. What style did you get before we move on?
I got some classic Chucks.
Oh, fire.
But wearing them, there's just a little bit of extra spring in my step because I'm like, oh
Mm.
yeah,
No,
I'm sponsored by Converse. This is sick.
no, for sure, for sure. Shout out to Converse. As I mentioned in your bio, you're in Victoria, not specifically in Melbourne, because I didn't want to generalize
Yeah.
and make sure I get that correct. Which means technically, me and you have actually never met. We've had a number of calls throughout 2023. I think I hit you up like sometime earlier in the year, like, hey man, like, I see you around. Like, it'll be dope to just chop it up, pick your brain and stuff like that. And since then, we've had a couple calls, and even as of recently, you started a group chat of all
Yep.
the dope journalists and journalist adjacent individuals on Instagram, and that's been super fun to be a part of. But yeah, it's unfortunate that me and you haven't met yet, but that's cool,
And
soon.
that'll change. I'll come up to Sydney soon. We'll hang out. Like,
Yes.
but I think that's kind of the magic of music journalism. Like, we may not have met, but we've been able to share share different thoughts on music. We've spoken. There are artists that we agree on. There are artists that we disagree on. But I
Hmm.
think for me, it's so important to kind of build those networks, even if you're not meeting with people in person, just so there is that sense of community. I
Hmm.
know personally that for probably the first few years of doing music journalism, I was very much like I knew people, but they were on the periphery. It was kind of me doing it on my own. I
Hmm.
had mentorship from some people because I came in at the tail end of the blog era.
Hmm.
But over the last couple of years, that's been a real focus of mine is like building that community, whether
Hmm.
that is in person or over things like Instagram or even, yeah,
Yeah.
group chats.
Yeah.
So being able to meet like-minded individuals like yourself and really like just talk about the ins and outs of music media, but more generally just kind of share a collective love of music.
For sure.
That's so important to me, and I think it pushes everyone further. When you see people are succeeding around you, and you're getting to enjoy that with them, that's really exciting because otherwise it can be very isolated. You can just see people succeeding and you don't have a context of what's going on in the wider scene. When you're able to see that, that's really exciting.
For sure. For sure. And, that natural collaboration is in, at least in our sense, is always dope. And, the sharing of ideas and being like, hey, have you checked out this song? Or, hey, like, what do you think of this? Or, hey, I wrote this. I interviewed so and so. It's really cool. And again, through the group chat that we now have, which, to the audience, if you are a journo, like, hit us up. We'd love to add you.
Hit us
This is
up.
not we're not gatekeeping. Like,
No,
we want to
absolutely
add
not.
as many people to this chat and really have a dope trading of ideas. So please hit either of us up. Or, yeah, because we'd love to add you and stuff like that. So yeah, it's it's,
Yeah,
it's gonna be good.
yeah. I'm. Please let us know. We'll add you in because it's exciting to be part of it, and it's exciting to see it grow. It started off as just a few of us. People add people, and all of a sudden you've got this thriving community.
Hmm.
You can tell it's only been going for a couple of weeks now, but I'm excited to see where once things really kick back up in
Hmm.
the world of music,
For sure.
where it goes.
For sure. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, like you said, the chat started at such a place where it's like, okay, we're winding down. It's still been fun. We've had, funny discussions here and there, but it's been a lot of, wrapping up stuff. But I think, as 2024 has now started and music's, I guess, starting to slowly ramp back up, it's like, okay, when releases start to properly come out, it's like, okay,
Yes.
here's where we start cooking with oil
This
and
is
yeah.
exactly. And I think, like anyone, I'm sure I've got musical blind spots. So being able to talk to other people and kind of cover those by seeing what's coming out,
Yeah.
that's really exciting.
Definitely, definitely, and yeah. So I'm super keen to see where that goes. So I'm not sure how familiar you are. I think you said you've watched an episode or two of this, but just to give my little blurb to the audience, this isn't a typical interview, and it's especially more so with Ben, not a typical interview because it's a journalist interviewing a journalist rather than me interviewing an artist. So, it's going to be even more different. But, I'm not asking the typical, so tell me about your latest piece type thing. I guess we'll see how it goes. Honestly, this is new territory for me as well. But hopefully the audience can get to know you as a person a bit more than what they see from, again, reviews or any articles that you've written. And my first question to you is, what percentage of yourself do you think your circle really knows about you?
That's a great question. It's a hard one to answer because I feel like for me personally, I think I've got a few distinct communities that I probably operate in.
Mhm.
So I'm really into music. I write about music, but I'm also a massive sports fan. So
As
I'm
myself.
a
Yep.
very mediocre leg spin bowler. I'm unfortunately a huge Essendon supporter. But I'm also really into competitive Super Smash Bros. Melee,
Oh,
which is
beautiful.
on the Nintendo GameCube game from 2001.
Yep.
Yeah, it's still going. Look, honestly, I would say probably 80 to 85%. I think
Mm,
I'm pretty open about all those loves, but I do think there is benefit to not putting all your eggs in one basket.
mm,
That being said, I'm not shying away from any part of myself. There are just probably aspects that come out more when I'm talking about sport with people versus
mhm,
when I'm talking about music.
for sure.
But inevitably, those communities always cross over. There's
Mhm,
more crossover than you'd expect, I think, between communities.
mm.
Yeah, I feel like 80 to 85% is probably a fair response.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. And my follow-up to that, which is also kind of a tough question because I'm not sure how much of this you can convey in this, but it's how much of that percentage do you think you've shared in your journalistic avenues, I guess, so far?
I would say a similar percentage.
Hmm.
I think as a music journalist, sometimes you've got as any journalist, you've got to
Hmm.
be objective. You can have artists that you really ride for, or artists that you might not understand
Hmm.
as much as some other people might. But at the end of the day, you've really got to go, why do people love this? What can I pull out of this? Because whether you're interviewing someone or you're reviewing a project or you're just covering even music news, you're trying to really find the human behind the artist
Yeah.
and behind the music. You can write about the sounds all you want, but for me, I find what's most interesting is pulling out um, the humanity of an artist. And I think on the flip side, then you've got to put more of yourself into the piece.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's not a fair exchange. So I would say 70 to 75% of myself goes into any piece. I
Hmm.
mean, I would like to say 100%, but I think sometimes the pieces just don't call for that. Sometimes
Hmm.
you've got to be really objective and stick to the facts without presenting your opinion as much. And then sometimes, yeah, you're able to put your opinion in it as much as you like. Sometimes that's what the piece is. And sometimes it's like, no, I'm going to tell the artist's story and really center them
Hmm.
rather than bringing myself in as a narrator too much.
Yeah.
So it's honestly a percentage that fluctuates from piece to piece, but I feel like 70 to 75% is about where I'd land
Yeah.
with the understanding that I really hope that when someone reads a piece of mine, they go, "Oh, that's Ben's writing style. That's
Mm.
Ben's thoughts." I'm gonna kind of follow, and that's a dream for any, I think,
Yeah.
music journalist. I'm going to follow along his thoughts because I like the way he conveys them and I like his taste. Because we are, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of the word, we are tastemakers.
Of course.
Every time you write about something, or you cover something, or you interview someone,
Hmm.
you're putting your taste out there to be judged.
Yeah.
So I think 70 to 75% is a fair,
Hmm.
kind of a fair percentage.
For sure, for sure. And of those tastes, what are you partial to? So then, people might know for next time they read a Ben Madden article.
So I'm really into Australian hip hop. I think
Hmm.
that's probably something that I've covered a lot in 2023.
Hmm.
Quite into pop. I'm loath to use the term hyper pop, but kind of
Mm.
hyper pop. Quite
Mm.
into that. R&B. I am into punk. I don't cover punk that much, but I do
Mm.
like punk and like post punk and rock. But yeah, I think at the moment I'm really covering Australian hip hop and
Mm.
anything Australian basically. But yeah, like Australian hip hop, pop, R&B. That's probably my bread and butter at the moment.
For sure, for sure. And just to go a little bit more specific with the hip hop, because that's my main area as well. Um, any subgenres in particular of Aussie hip hop?
Cloud rap. So yeah, internet rap, cloud rap.
Hmm.
I do really like drill. Um, Not the biggest fan in the world of trap, which might be a bit controversial. But yeah, I'm really into cloud rap at the moment. That's kind of what I've been listening to for the last probably 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, dope, dope. And to be even more specific, any of artists that
Yeah.
in particular that you really enjoy?
Sydney Phillips,
Hmm.
Lil Ket,
Yeah.
Scan and Suswana. And then I guess outside of that, I'm really into artists like Zion Garcia,
Mm.
Agung Mango,
Yeah.
Hamza, um, Brazen Barbie,
Mm.
A Girl, like artists like that.
For sure, for sure. A lot of dope artists. Some artists that I'm personally trying to get into as well. Me and you have had discussions about Sydney, and my personal thoughts. But yeah, it's definitely as I go and again to go back into the conversation about the trading of thoughts. Like I never thought that half a year ago that I'd be open to even accepting that type of hip hop. But now I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I get it. I'm starting to get it. So, that's again why it's dope to have these type of conversations and the open community of trading of thoughts.
I mean, that's the exciting part, right? Because if it'd be easy to just sit with what you know that you like and kind of write off that. And someone like yourself, you've got a diverse taste already.
Mhm.
You could easily just coast off that. But when you're talking to other people about what they like, you're really able to kind of unpack why it clicks for someone. Like
Yeah.
that, Sydney Phelps and Lil Cat, the first time I heard them, it clicked. Because I grew up listening to artists like Young Lean. Like
Yeah.
that was from the age of 13, I was
Mhm.
listening to Young Lean. So
Yeah,
that real internet like influence rap has always made sense to me, and that's I've always been drawn to it.
for sure.
But if someone hasn't, then they might not see that lineage as much.
Yeah.
But then you talk to people about it, and it's like, oh, okay, I get it. And then there are artists that I don't get at first, but then I talk to people that really love them. I'm like, oh, okay, that really makes sense. I'm gonna lean into this a little bit more.
For sure. Yeah, I guess look out for anything you write or have written, you know, regarding those artists for sure. Well, hopefully through this conversation, the audience can get to know you a little bit more of that 85 or 75%. And now we're going to take it to the main part of this conversation. Take it back to primary school days, do a little bit of show and tell.
Yep.
Um, and I got a couple questions. Ben has got some items, and if not, hopefully, some dope stories to go along with it. So let's get into that. And my first question to you is, what's something that represents who you are as a person?
I don't know if everyone can see this, but I'm holding up a Essendon scarf
Mm,
and a GameCube controller. So I
okay.
mentioned before that in addition to being really into music, also really into footy,
Mm-hmm.
into cricket, into soccer,
Mm-hmm.
and really into playing Super Smash Bros.
Mm.
not much of a gamer. I think this is where people always get confused. I'm like, oh, I'm into competitive Super Smash Bros. Melee. They're like, what other games do you play? I'm like, I've got a Switch. I actually yesterday went and bought some new Joy-Cons for it for the first time in like a
Okay.
year because mine had broken and I just
Mm,
couldn't use it. But I find that having those pursuits kind of outside of music, it keeps your love for music alive. I think as content creators, it's really easy to get consumed by that desire to always create content.
for sure.
But you've got to switch your brain off. You've got to kind of look outside of music, look outside of, for me, music journalism, go live life because then you can funnel that back into your pieces.
Mm,
As an Essendon supporter, that usually results in misery right around July, August, and
hmm.
despair in September when your team hasn't made it again.
Yep.
But no, I would say those two. When I thought about this, those two really represent who I am because in addition to music, like those are the things that I like doing. Obviously, apart from like hanging out with friends, family, my girlfriend, my dog, but like in terms of things that I'm interested in,
Hmm.
yeah, I will chew anyone's ear off about leg spin. I will chew people's ears off about Super Smash Bros. Melee. Um, Being into those things, I think it helps me be more well-rounded, which I think ultimately helps you become a better writer, or at least I hope it does.
For sure. For sure. And it, shows you're human.
Yes.
You're not just a robot who's just like, wake up every day and, um, just listen to music 24/7 and then you go to sleep listening to music, wake up, listen to music. All you
No.
do, write music. And yeah, and it's something that I relate to as well. I'm a huge sports fan as well. I was telling someone earlier today that, if I'm not if even while I'm doing music, I'm gonna have a game on in the background. I don't
Yeah.
care what it is. It could be lawn bowls. If it's live, it's on the TV. Or like I love games. I'm getting back into, I got my PS2. Um,
Cool.
I was talking with Zion on on the previous episode about Tony Hawk Underground, and I'm playing Midnight Club 3 again for the millionth time because I love that game. I'm not so much an AFL supporter myself. I am a Swan supporter, I guess, by
Yeah.
area, but I don't consistently watch it. And but I'm getting a lot back into cricket, and watching a little bit more of the NRL. Obviously, being from Sydney or New South Wales, more so. Obviously, I lean more towards NRL, but yeah, it's just the human side of you. When did you start getting into AFL slash Essendon specifically? Like, do you remember a moment?
I It was never really a choice. I think
Mm,
for many people will be able to relate to this, but I remember supporting the first time I really remember supporting Essendon is 2003, so I would have been 5 years old.
mhm.
So it's a um lifelong cause of pain and suffering. Let's call it for what it is. Being an Essendon supporter is pain and suffering, but I'm sometimes glad that I go for them. But
Mhm,
yeah, like as far back as I can remember, kind of footy was just something that I watched. I
mhm.
remember watching it on a like an old CRT for like a square box that wasn't
Classic.
much big, like 20 inches wide. I think it would have been like
Yeah.
with rabbit ears, like as an aerial. Like that's how far back it goes. Like, did I know what was going on some of the time? Was I obsessed with it? Absolutely. I would always read. I had this book about all the AFL finals up until 2002,
Mm,
and I would read that obsessively. I'm not as obsessive about footy at the moment because I've tried to become much more well-rounded. But yeah, I loved it, and I've always loved it. And when it's footy season, yeah, always watching Essendon, always wondering went wrong to make me an Essendon supporter. Is this a punishment from a higher being? But no, like I've loved footy as long as I can remember.
for sure. Um, On to question two. What's the last sentimental gift that you received from someone?
So my wonderful girlfriend got me a record player for Christmas. So this
Fire.
is the 10th anniversary edition of the XX album.
Mm,
Um, yeah, that's absolutely the last sentimental gift I got. When we met, we've been together for nearly 6 years now.
mm.
We bonded over music. That's one of the things that we really bonded over. We've got a lot of artists that we share that we both love, and we'll go to gigs together.
Mhm.
Lot of There's music that she loves that that I might not be into
Mhm.
initially, but I'll get exposed to it, which I really enjoy. And same for her. There's stuff that I'm into that she might not have heard before, but then
Mhm.
I'll play it for her. I love talking about music with her. And she is the road trip DJ. So I'll get in
Oh
the car.
wow.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'll hop in the car. She'll chuck on a Spotify playlist. And yeah, it's just a chance to listen to different music. And that's something that we both love doing is talking about music, going to gigs together. And yeah, her getting me a record player for Christmas, so, so good. Like we
Mm.
were listening to it on Christmas Day, setting it up. Must admit, I had a little bit of trouble setting it up initially. But I
Not
got
tech
it.
savvy, eh?
I'm tech savvy to the point where I can do things like set up a Zoom meeting, all that. But getting down into the real nitty gritty
Uh,
takes me a little bit.
yeah.
Thank God for the internet.
Facts.
But we got there, and yeah, sitting there listening to that with her, yeah, that was really special. That's a gift that like I'm gonna cherish forever.
For
Having that
sure, for
record
sure.
player, knowing that we can share it, knowing we've got a
Mm.
shared music collection, play our favorite albums for each other, listen to it together. Yeah, that's something that's really special.
Yeah, dope. Dope. Um, is there something that you have put each other onto the uh or more so that she's put you onto that you were extremely reluctant at
That's
first,
a good
but
question. I mean,
yeah.
I'm pretty open to everything. Something I will say is that in just before COVID, we went up to Sydney to see U2. And I must
Mm.
admit that I'm not the biggest U2 fan in the world.
Yeah,
We went to the FCG to see U2. I've got a theory that if you're playing shows that big, there's a reason that you're playing shows that big, and
100%.
they were incredible. So
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
yeah, U2 is one that I would say, like getting to see U2 with her, one
Hmm.
of the best shows I've ever been to. And it was just, yeah, it was honestly mesmerizing just seeing that, like sport, that many people there to see you
Mm.
too. Like they put on one hell of a show. It's a show I'll never forget. So that's something I would say she's put me onto for sure.
Yeah, dope, dope. And is there and we'll keep it local just because, you know, for the sake of the tagging process, maybe. Is there an artist that you would love to have the record of to then play on your player?
We both really like this Perth rapper called Vasung, young kid
Mm.
out of Perth. Crazy voice, like just released a few projects now. Anyone listening to this, highly recommend you go check him out.
Mm.
Yeah, any of his stuff, I'd love it on vinyl so we can play it together. Because
That'd
yeah,
be dope.
both big fans. He's one of my favorite rappers coming out of the country.
Dope. All right, number three. What's the first most important piece of equipment that you ever bought or received?
This is one that I can't hold up, and there is a reason for that. So I studied journalism at university,
Hmm.
and right before I went to university, I got a Zoom recorder.
Mm.
Up until this point, I was actually doing interviews, like I was interviewing musicians, but I was doing it by putting my phone on loudspeaker and then getting my iPod Touch. So this
Oof.
is dating myself a little bit,
Oof.
and then having the loudspeaker play into the iPod Touch so that I could record it.
Wow.
Having a Zoom recorder meant that I was actually professional, or at least I thought I was professional.
Yes.
Why I say I thought I was professional was so I went to uni for journalism,
Yep.
and I did a lot of stuff with a community radio station in Melbourne called Sin, and they
Hmm.
have a news program called Panorama. And so I rock up. I'm a few weeks into my degree. I'd done music writing up until this point, probably not that much like news journalism.
Hmm.
And so Panorama would produce a daily package. So they ran 5 days a week. Each day they would organize a 30-minute like news bulletin with
Hmm.
different audio packages.
Yeah.
So there's me. I've got my Zoom recorder, and I'm sent off to a backpackers hostel. I wearing a backpack, look like I've got no idea what I'm doing because I didn't. And I'm tasked with going to this hostel and getting interviews with backpackers about the backpacker tax, which was a thing the government was doing at the time.
Right.
And I just have a burning memory, and I'll never forget this, of me standing there trying to ask people about the backpack attacks. I'm going to be honest, I probably didn't know enough about it to really engage in a knowledgeable conversation about it.
Yep.
And I got absolutely nothing. So I had to
Yeah.
return back to Sin with absolutely nothing. And I made it work. I made the package work. I think I got on the phone with the people and interviewed them. But that's always going to be the standout memory for me with my Zoom recorder because it was very humbling. I since then used the Zoom recorder for a bunch of interviews after that.
Hmm.
But that's kind of the thing I associate with it. And then I left it in the cupboard for a bit too long, and the batteries inside it exploded, and now it no longer works. So if you've got batteries in something, don't leave it in a cupboard for a couple of years, is my advice.
Story for the kids.
Just one of those stories that's like, what on earth was I doing?
Hey, look, we're gonna start somewhere. Look,
Everyone's got to start somewhere. And honestly, doing that show, Panorama, really fed into the music journalism because once you start getting tasked with bigger issues, like stories that cross over from music into like real life issues,
Mhm.
it helps. Like being as well rounded as possible, knowing how to get quotes on a strict deadline. Like I learned a lot from that, and my time doing journalism at uni in general. Did a couple of stints at Triple M and SBS
Mhm.
outside of kind of music journalism, and I think that all helped. But yeah, that story is one that's always going to stick with me because it means that I'll never get too big for my boots because I'm like, no, I remember feeling utterly helpless and out of my depth.
No, for sure. For sure. Oh, that's funny. Um, is there a piece of equipment now that you would like to purchase or have on you now?
Honestly, I'm pretty content with my setup. I think
Hmm.
it's a hard one. I think it's a hard one because my laptop works.
Hmm.
Um, it makes some whirring noises. It doesn't always turn on properly, but I don't know if that's user error or not. I'm pretty content with kind of how things are at the moment. I think for me, more so like it'd be purchasing pieces of software, like have, getting my own website, which getting my own website, having a Squarespace. This
Yeah.
isn't promo, but like having my own website has been really helpful. That's a purchase that I'm really happy that I made and continue to make.
Yeah.
Just having that kind of central place to showcase my articles. So
Hmm.
if there is any emerging music writers out there, get a website because your editors will love you if you've got a central place that you can send them to with all your links from different spots.
For sure. Where can the people find it at?
Uh, so it is benmadden.net, but I'm
Mm.
keeping my powder dry because I believe I might be talking about that in another question.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, we'll keep it moving then. So number 4, what's an object from or that represents one of your favorite pieces or interviews? Yes.
So this is where the blog comes in. So I thought about this one for a little while and I struggled to pick an interview that I was particularly like that stood out to me overall. There are pieces that I've written that have been, I think, significant, but I feel like the thing that I'm actually maybe most proud of is running a blog consistently for near on 18 months to 2 years
Yeah.
during COVID. So the start of COVID, found myself with a little bit of extra time. I'm like, I'm going to run a blog, see how long this lasts.
Hmm.
Never, it might last a week. I was running it pretty consistently, like putting up stories, like putting up reviews pretty much every weekday
Hmm.
for the better part of 2 years. And that really helped me. I think that's probably what helped me find a community. Got to know a lot of different artists,
Hmm.
got to know different PR people, which is really important. Got to know other writers, kind of people that were around the scene. It's not a physical object per se, but that website I think is a real time capsule into how my writings evolved from starting that blog to
Mm.
kind of then coming out the other side of it, really feeling like, oh, okay, so I can really do this on a scale that is manageable. I can manage all parts of the writing and editing process, which gave me a lot of confidence when I
Hmm.
became the music editorial specialist for Junkie because I
Yeah.
had that experience in my back pocket. I think that's something that I look back on a time capsule of, okay, I turned a time period that for most people wasn't the best,
Hmm.
couldn't really do much, used it to shine a light on a lot of Australian music that I was really excited about.
Hmm.
Got to really push my taste forward because I was listening to a lot of stuff, a lot of different stuff that I might not have otherwise listened to.
Hmm.
Honestly, running that was some of the most fun that I've ever had doing music journalism because it was so freeing. When you're running your own blog, you can write about anything and everything that you want to cover. There is
For sure.
no outside influences. I think it's easy, as much as we would love to say that our tastes are 100% our own and what we cover is 100% our own.
Hmm.
And I strive for that percentage to be
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But there are some things that it just makes sense to cover, whether you're looking to expand your profile or whether it's a big artist that you want to interview.
Hmm.
Everyone that read that blog, I am so grateful for, because it was only me promoting it. It was me pushing it, me doing the
For sure.
promotion, me sending the emails, me doing the writing, me doing the editing,
Yeah.
all that. That's something that I look back on and go, that's probably some of my favorite stuff that I've ever written, because it was so personal, it was so meaningful, and it was 100% me putting myself into it.
Yeah. No, I again, something I can also super relate to as well, as I built the Culture Black Kid brand. And, when I started actually being able to do my own reviews and, edit all my own clips and all that stuff, and then slowly, start this podcast and all that stuff. And it's really freeing. And like you said, it's my thoughts, all how I want to do it in my way, and put out how I want to do it. And yeah, it's freeing. And it's not like, obviously you've worked with people and for people and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, when you got your own personal thing, it's like this is mine, and you cherish it, and you hold on to it like this is I know for a fact that no one can take this away from me.
Absolutely. And because like at the time, like from 2019 to 2022, I was a staff writer with a website called Cool Accidents,
Hmm.
kind of doing stuff for them, features, music news as well. So running this kind of concurrently, it was really like one was feeding into the other in terms of learning about Australian music and like artists starting out, and then
Hmm.
being able to go, okay, we'll cover them on Cool Accidents.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of artists even now that like I got to know through running that blog
Hmm.
that I've since been able to cover on places like Junkie, Acclaim, Vice. Like
Hmm.
for me, that's really rewarding. So yeah, you're putting your taste on display 100%, but you're then able to almost port that with you to other places and other platforms. And you've really, yeah, it's I think it's really exciting because you can go, this is 100% me. This is what I listen to. If you
Hmm.
like it, enjoy it. If you don't, I'm just going to keep doing this regardless. Like
Yeah,
I'm doing
facts.
this for me, and
Hmm.
people like it, then cool.
No, for sure, for sure. Do you have a personal favorite article, one, that you've ever written? And two, do you have a favorite uh article that someone else has written in the scene?
Oh, they're both great questions. Um, yes, I do. So
Hmm.
my favorite article that I've ever written, because I think it was one that really helped me like kind of break through a plateau as a writer.
Hmm.
I went along to it was sort of a review, sort of a feature on this Melbourne hip hop group called 3K. They put
Mm.
on a hometown show. I believe it was in 2022
Hmm.
for their EP, City of Fever. I think I've got the name right there. 1300 supported, CD supported, and Solly was there as well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was writing that piece, getting thoughts from everyone that was kind of on the lineup. Um, just really trying to capture a moment in time for Melbourne hip hop. We'd come out of COVID. 3K are a beloved hometown group. The
Hmm.
energy in the room was crazy. Covering that like at a moment in time, I was really proud of it because it also kind of helped me kind of realize the kind of features I wanted to write.
Mm.
Getting and I've done this a few times since. Like I've covered groups like Full Circle, getting quotes from everyone in the collective.
Yeah.
Wrote a piece about music festivals in Australia and got quotes from both artists and music fest like promoters.
Hmm.
But that piece is one that will always stick out to me. Also, because there is a photographer called Right Bulb who took some of the craziest photos of all
Hmm.
time, and I used them for the piece, and yeah, they look like movie shots.
For sure. For
Um,
sure.
and, and then favorite piece that someone else has written. One of my favorite writers in Australia is this guy called Dog Scraps. Highly
Mm.
recommend everyone goes and checks out his blog. Just keeping like blogging culture alive in Australia. Like if you're for any listeners, if you're a fan of the American blog Nobels, who are doing some of the best rap journalism in the world,
Hmm.
I would say Dog Scraps is like Australia's version of Nobels. He wrote this piece on a Sydney rapper called Hamza, and I've
Mm.
read it 3 or 4 times. It's just this really long interview with Hamza, but it kind of really represents to me like what music journalism should be. just someone wanting to sit down with an artist and really working out what makes them tick.
For sure. For sure.
No word count to it, no like restrictions to it. Just this is what we spoke about. We're going to cover anything and everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this on my blog. People are going to love it. People are going to read it. And it's a piece that, yeah, it's a piece that really symbolizes why I like music journalism.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that would probably be one. Like, obviously, there are so many great writers, but
Hmm.
that's a piece that I go back to when I'm feeling a little bit low, and that inspires me to go, oh, okay, we're doing this because we love music. Like
Yeah.
for all the ins and outs of the music industry, for all the ins and outs of music journalism, we're all doing this because we want to highlight great artists doing great things, and we want to ask them ideally great questions.
For sure. For sure. I love that. So, shout out to Dog Scraps, and yeah, no, make sure you go check out either of those if they're readily available for sure. And number five, what is something that represents your dreams and aspirations within your field?
So this is a copy of the. I don't think they're making it anymore.
Hmm.
I think it's mirrored on my camera, but a copy of the February 2022 NME Australia magazine.
Hmm.
So growing up, I was very much like a blog writer. I wrote
Hmm.
for a lot of online blogs, but something that I always really, really enjoyed was getting put in print.
Hmm.
There's just something different about being in print. I think most writers can relate to this, but the feeling of being in print and having your words there forever, really exciting. So I wrote a bit for Beat magazine down here
Hmm.
in Melbourne, got in there a few times. That was really exciting.
Hmm.
Really wanted to write for Enemy that had been a goal for a little while. Got a couple of pieces up with them, and then I wrote a 1-300 interview that ended up in this February 2022
Hmm.
edition. And that was something that really spurred me on because from there I was like, okay, I can keep pushing this, keep kind of reaching for those loftier bylines.
Yeah.
And for me, honestly, like my dreams and aspirations are just to write for as many places as I can, interview as many Australian artists as I can, and really put Australian artists on an international scale
Hmm.
as much as I can with my writing in my own small way. That's kind of my dreams and aspirations.
Yeah, dope.
We've all got professional goals, all of that, but I think for me that's kind of the central thing that keeps pushing me along when I'm feeling a bit down or lifts me back up when I'm just feeling drained or whatever. And being able to put a group like 1-300 in the Enemy Australia magazine, that
Hmm.
was really exciting for me. I've watched quite a few evolutions of Australian hip hop over the years
Hmm.
from when I was very young or listening to artists like Drafts, S Century,
Hmm.
Hez, kind of those guys, Hilltop Hoods.
Yeah,
1-300 for me really signify kind of the evolutions that Australian hip hop
for
has
sure.
gone through over the last half decade.
Hmm.
So yeah, that I grabbed this magazine because I'm like, I think that's something that is really important to me. Like, of course, we all want those big moments to be like, oh, I made it to Pitchfork or I made it to GQ or
Yeah.
whatever it might be, like whatever people's aspirations are.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, we're doing it for the love of the music. So yeah, being published in print, any magazines, hit me up. I'm more than happy to write for you because being in print, honestly, and this at a simple level, being in print is something that people that aren't involved in music journalism or don't like listen to music that much, they can understand that. Being published on a website, great, and I
Yeah.
love being published on a website.
Hmm.
Being in print, you can show that to anyone. They're like, oh yeah, okay, this is really going somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. And a lot of artists also feel like that. That's why they, create CDs and, vinyls of their projects, cassettes, just having that physical item to hold and be like, yo, like I created this. I was a part of this process in some way is so great. And I get that, especially seeing words that you've written maybe on a laptop or, if you write on a notepad, um, translated into something that's printed that other people can buy or even just collect, depending on, however the publication goes about giving away those the magazines and stuff like that is yeah, definitely something that is such a surreal feeling. You grow up from, whatever your ambitions were when you're a kid into, you studying journalism into actually having your words printed. it's like you said, it's just such it's almost like an out of body experience of just holy shit.
Yeah,
I
and I
dig this.
think I don't know if you're like me, but it's easy to go to write something or create something and then move on to the next. But
Hmm.
when it's in a physical form, it's like, no, that exists forever. That you can kind of savor it a bit more.
Yeah.
When you're always looking to jump from one thing to the next, from interviewing one artist to the next, from one
Hmm.
project to the next. But I think something being in a physical form kind of almost forces you to stop and reflect on the achievement, as it were.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's just exciting. I think at the end of the day, like I grew up reading street press, I grew up reading magazines. Like
Hmm.
for me, that's what got me into music journalism in the first place. So to
Hmm.
then be in a physical form, it's like, oh, cool. This can sit on my bookshelf. I'm really impressed with this.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. It's dope. It's really dope. And you know, uh hoping for more written and printed articles and all that jazz in the very near future, for sure.
Fingers
For sure,
crossed.
for sure. Yeah, keen to keep following that journey, for sure. All right, we're gonna a couple more questions, but
Yep.
here is where I like to play a game because I love games.
Yes.
Now, typically, I ask when I have an artist on, build your ultimate collab track, but unfortunately, you are not an artist, but that is totally fine. Unless you have your homies that you like to play guitar around the campfire type ultimate
No,
collab.
that is staying in the cupboard.
So I'm gonna switch it up and I'm gonna shout out Acclaim magazine for this. And what you are gonna do is gonna build your Ben Madden's All Stars.
Oh,
Um, so 10 slots,
then slots.
9 artists. I want you to choose 3 hip hop artists, 3 R&B artists, and 3 how I call non-hip hop R&B artists, and then 1 producer.
Okay. Oh, that's a tough one. All right. Hip hop artists.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go Mammoth,
Mm-hmm.
Brazen Barbie,
Mm-hmm.
Sydney Phillips.
Okay.
R&B. I'm gonna cheat and put A Girl in there.
Okay. Yep.
Chireen.
Okay.
Um, and Panya.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of people that haven't been in it as well.
True. That is very true.
And then when you say non-hip hop artist, can that be anyone?
Yeah, pretty much. That's an open lane.
Okay. Wow, that's a difficult one. Gonna put Dane in there.
Okay.
Um, he, this is a tough one. Um, Dane, I'll put Nina Geraci in there just
Mm-hmm.
because big producer. And I'm gonna put in Perdo.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And who's
Who's-
going to be because you mentioned a producer, but who's
Yeah, but
also an artist?
my producer,
Yeah.
yeah. So my producer is gonna be Hard Eyes, a Sydney producer,
Mm.
made music a step back, kind of works with Dane. I'm gonna choose Hard Eyes because I'm a massive Hard Eyes fan.
Dope. Dope. And I
I
guess to
think that meets all the criteria. I hope it does.
I think it does. I think it does. You're putting me onto a couple artists that I'm not even sure about, but dope. And if you can make, so you said Hard Eyes is the producer. They're producing a track with one of the hip hop artists, one of the R&B artists, and one of the non-hip hop R&B artists.
Yep.
What's the collab for like the quote unquote
Um,
cipher that they do?
Sydney Phillips,
Yep.
uh, Treen,
Mm-hmm.
and Perdo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know how that question was gonna go, but I think that went pretty well.
Yeah. I
And
think
if you ever get into that position where you're starting to do your own type of situation dealing like that, or even be a part of that in some way, then interesting picks for sure, for
I think
sure.
that it would probably be a little bit chaotic, but like if you
Look,
ask me the question, I'm gonna give you my choices.
of course, it shows people who you're looking out for, and hopefully at some point, obviously I know Acclaim is very much in the hip hop R&B thing, so the non hip hop R&B artists, the chances of them getting in is pretty slim. But at least with some of the hip hop R&B artists that you mentioned, it'll be cool to see what's happening with them in 2024. So yeah, we'll see what happens. See what happens there.
If Mammoth doesn't make the Acclaim All-Stars in 2024, there will be riots on the streets of Victoria.
I do not doubt that, and it will be well deserved and a biggest snub of 2024 if he doesn't, because I 1000%
Oh
agree.
yeah, we've put Acclaim on notice. We've got to make it happen.
For sure. For sure. Okay, couple more questions. What is a personal moment that stands out to you that has impacted your journalism in a certain way?
That's a good question. I think for me, something that was really significant and something that gave me a lot of confidence was interviewing the Avalanches at the end of 2020. They were a group that I grew up listening to, as a lot of Australians did. Getting to speak to them, have a big chat with them, kind of turn that into a piece.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that really impacted me because it gave me a lot of self-confidence in what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think over COVID, like in kind of those couple of years leading into it, I was enjoying music journalism, but I probably wasn't as confident in my writing as I would have liked to have been. But from that point on, I was like, well, I've interviewed a group that I loved growing up. Like I've loved them my entire life.
Yeah.
I can interview anyone. Why not? For me, that's something that stands out as a personal achievement. But I guess like in terms of impact of my journalism, honestly, probably the last like year or two, kind of getting to know a lot more writers in Australia, like forming communities, like even through group chats, and then meeting up with people, like meeting other writers from Melbourne, and then even other people from other states, kind of getting to know them through the power of social media. That's something that's really helped my writing because it's given me a lot of confidence in not only my writing but in networking, which is your opinions on networking may vary, but it is something that's really important. So getting to meet so many new people, that's given me a lot of confidence in my work.
Definitely. To go off that most recent point, yeah. Again, the natural, trading of ideas. We talked about it, multiple times throughout this conversation. It's just dope. It's just dope having communities like that. And to bring it back to the first point you made about, interviewing the Avalanches, that, I bet it definitely was super a big confidence builder, especially, someone who you've looked up to. I'm sure that, if I ever interviewed, or when I interviewed like Hilltop Hoods, it's gonna be like, yo, I've listened to you guys for so long. And it's the whole meeting your heroes and it actually goes well type thing.
Yes.
It's like, oh, okay, I can take on the world.
I can do anything.
No one can tell me nothing.
Exactly. So, like you interview someone that you looked up to for so long, and then you're able to meet them on an equal playing field, or as equal as it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you feel like you're flying.
For sure. So yeah, no, that's dope. I totally understand both of those for sure. All right, well, that does it. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Great start to the year, talking to you, and looking forward to hopefully what's in store for this year in the world of Australian journalism, especially from your point of view. Here's where I kind of ask you what's happening, what the people can, I guess, look out for. I know it's not like you have an album dropping, but
you never know.
That's true. That is true. Ben Madden All-Stars coming soon. But what can the people look forward to?
I think just I'm going to be writing a lot this year, so follow me kind of on all platforms at Ben Madden Writer. Yeah, I think just a big year of writing is kind of the goal. I've got a couple of things in the works at the moment in terms of pieces I want to work on. I think one thing is like really kick back up for music writing in the next week or two, like a lot more irons in the fire. But yeah, no, just follow me on socials if you're that way inclined. And yeah, I'm sure I'll be rolling out a bunch of pieces this year. At least I hope so.
Dope. I definitely will be looking forward to it. And keen to read even some previous ones that I still need to get around to. So yeah, definitely stay tapped in with Ben. It's gonna be really dope. But yeah, All right. Thank you. Thank you so much once again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Rue. It was a lovely time. Really
No,
enjoyed
of
it.
course. Of course. I've been Ruu, aka the Culture Black Kid, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.